Welcome to the XFA Podcast. My name is Lars. Today with me I have Gijs van Laar, CTO of XFA, and our guest today is John Opdenakker, the IT Security Manager at Wolters Kluwer Belgium, delivering security consultancy services and also a cybersecurity influencer on X. So tell us, how do you become a cybersecurity celebrity and influencer?
Wow. First of all, thanks for having me, both of you. Very nice, very kind of inviting me. Very kind words. I don't see myself as an influencer at all. What I do on X, previously Twitter, is sharing knowledge and mainly also learning from others. I think that's really important. And like you said, I'm working for Wolters Kluwer, which is a global company. We're like providing solutions and services to in Belgium. We have different divisions, like we have that globally, but I'm working for tax and accounting. So we deliver solutions to accountants, tax advisors, and to businesses as well. You also mentioned that I have started my own side gig last year, and and that's I do, be it in limited capacity. I'll do some consultancy and advisory to companies. So
Very
that's
nice.
limited time. But as you can hear, always busy with security. So it's really something I'm passionate about.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. As you mentioned, X is or was at least always a good platform for the cybersecurity community. I think there are many great people sharing knowledge, and I think it's a great platform. Yeah, we are impressed with the number of followers that you acquired. Is that just organically grown, or?
Well, number of followers, it's what it says. It's a
Sure.
number, because if you would look now, active followers, it's nothing I really ever wanted.
Yeah.
But it just came with several things. I started a blog like I think now 5 years ago, and started sharing. And I remember the first time that I posted and was like very anxious. I read it like 5 or 6 times to be sure that it was nothing wrong in it. And then I posted it, and I had like 100 followers and 50 views.
Mm.
And that was the start, really. And year after year that grew by sharing, by going into conversations with others. And yeah, it is what it is. It grows, and it, the main benefit for me is the reach I had back then. Nowadays with X, it's a lot less, but then I had reach. So if I had a question, for instance, take something like thinking about a cyber security awareness initiative, and I said, look, I'm doing this kind of awareness and I'm doing it like this. How do you do it? Just exchanging ideas. It's just one of the examples, and I think this is really great. And this number helps, and that's everything, because with this number also comes people that don't like what you do, and they're like, whoa, this guy's opinionated and he's wrong, and they will prove you wrong. And that's also very good to learn. And no, it's only social media after all. So I like to see myself as not as an influencer, but someone who likes to learn, likes to share things. And
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I agree that good conversations is nice, and to get good feedback. Um, as you said, like the first blog post, you take time and you think about it, and you're like, well, I don't want to be wrong, but it's not necessarily bad to be sometimes wrong, right? To have discussions, and there are many great people also online that can feed these good discussions, and that you can disagree and talk about these things. Unfortunately, there are also people that are less nice and just want to point things out just because I don't know, their ego or something like that, and that is a pity.
I think that society as a whole, there are people who like you, people that don't like you, but they're more vocal on social media because they're behind their keyboard. And one thing I want to also, like you say, want to explain is like, prove me wrong every single time, but prove me wrong with arguments, and not prove me wrong without reading the post I did, or the blog I published. But by all means, prove me wrong, discuss with me, give counter arguments. That's the way you become better, and I really valued that, I must say, because I'm not that active anymore. Yeah, I blame Musk. I don't know, but things have changed. But honestly, I think that's the valuable part, because no one is always right. Absolutely not. And if that's your way of approaching things, that you have the absolute truth, yeah, probably I don't want to talk too much with that kind of people, because they're, yeah,
Yeah, it's just not
they
true.
don't,
No one is always right, right?
yeah, absolutely, they don't listen to arguments at all. So you
Mm.
can't have a good discussion, I think.
Yeah, I once read actually that if you want to have a proper answer to an online question, you should post your answer as well as possible, and then make a different account, post a wrong answer, and then wait. And people like it much more to yeah, correct somebody than
Yeah.
to properly give an answer, which is really interesting. But I do think, and I think this is as cultivated as well, like Stack Overflow and a lot for developers already, or like technical discussions. Hey, is this a good camera? Is this a good etc. But for security, I feel like we're still a bit behind there. Online posting questions: is this secure? I have this specific issue, because there is some secrecy maybe needed or maybe unneeded that shrouds a lot of these discussions. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Were you comfortable sharing every detail about a specific question that you had?
Um, well, if it's about what I mentioned, a cybersecurity campaign, or part of your awareness activities, or then I don't have a lot of problems, because obviously every company should do this, I think, or does this, hopefully. If it's application security wise, yeah, really there is the fact that you shouldn't leak
Sure.
company details. But even if you're just sharing code snippets on Stack Overflow, there's something like intellectual property as well. So I think a lot of people don't think enough about this. But also there's maybe when we share a little bit more, so I agree with you as well, that doesn't do much harm, but it's, yeah, case by case. I would look at that. We always give the advice to our developers as well, certainly now with AI being very prevalent. Yeah, don't share like things like intellectual property, and certainly don't share, yeah, secrets. Obviously, I hope you don't have them in code, because that's something we're really putting in a lot of effort to not have that, and a lot of checks on that. But if you look at the internet, you will for sure find snippets with passwords, with credentials, with any other secrets. So
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
think it's really interesting. I remember once I had yeah, a specific question that I posted online, and what I find always specifically also on security things, because I think the niche is smaller, there are less influencers, I would say, for security specific things, that the response is often quite great, or those people are very easy to reach out to. So I think if you have a question about security, I think even though it feels like the question is not a lot asked, or people are not asking these questions, a lot of people that want to answer these.
exactly, because if you, for instance, you have a question about content security policy, and the guy, literally the guy who made the
Exactly.
content, who contributed to the CSP, is answering you. That's like, whoa. It's amazing that from your keyboard you can ask, and you get all these experts, because and that's mainly Twitter, but also maybe some forums, maybe, I don't know, but mainly Twitter was like that. X still is for a part, but it was really like, yeah, you had experts discussing in the replies to your tweet, and you were like, whoa, this is amazing, and things I didn't even think about, and they're like explaining it, having a good discussion. So yeah, that's, I thought this is really, really valuable. So I hope we can get back to more this kind of content on X or any other social medium. I think it was a great way of yeah, having this expert knowledge just one tweet away.
but it got more difficult, right, on X?
It got more difficult, and why is that? Because probably if you don't pay, or if you, I don't know, if you don't use the premium model, you probably
They
your
limit your
tweets,
reach.
yeah, you don't get. I did the test, and like I said, yeah, you're saying you have that amount of followers. Yeah, that was great, because that reach was like, if I have 20,000 followers in the moment of time, not every tweet, but several tweets I reach 20,000, and if they keep reposting it, it grows. But now, if I have 500 views, I think I didn't check anymore. But when Twitter became X, it was really. And that's not about ego, about being influencer, but it's no fun that you post something, a question, and you were used to getting a lot of interaction replies, and nowadays you don't. So I think it's a big shame that we don't get this interaction anymore.
Yeah, indeed, because there was kind of a move to other platforms. Mastodon was like a big one, but I've been on it, and I think it's much harder to interact with people. It was less stable at the time. Maybe it got better over time, but
I don't know, to be honest. I had a Mastodon account from years ago, so started using it again. Bit of the same experience as you. Then the founder of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, I think. Yes, he started Blue Sky, if I'm not mistaken. He started as well. But then again, people on Twitter were saying, we're not going to Blue Sky, and if not everyone goes to the new platform, and still it's not as feature rich. It's
exactly, you need both, right? You need the features, you need the community be on the same platform. It's the same, like I think maybe Meta's effort with Threads might have been more successful just because everyone was already on Instagram, or a lot of people were already on Instagram, and you automatically got an account. But you still have to be active on it. So, and then everyone basically starts new, right? You have to start connecting and getting followers, and that's just a pity, right? That the platform that everyone has been using is like getting worse, and that we don't get the same value anymore out of it.
Yeah, it's really, and it's like you say as well. It's still, cybersecurity is quite new.
Painfully, yes. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And there was this good community of sharing ideas, and I miss it. On the other hand, less social media is better for
for
health
mental
in
health.
general, and to do other things instead. So
that's cool. Yeah. But we did read your New Year's resolutions blog post, where you mentioned I will do more podcasts, and so one of those resolutions is already happening. So that's cool. But were there, given we understand, of course, it's a bit demotivating if the reach is not there, were there specific topics that you said, hey, this is something I want to write a big blog post about in the coming year?
Yes. Thanks for reading. And I had a lot of plans, but then it was like really busy at work. You know how it goes. And
exactly.
Then I didn't have much time for blogging. Yeah, I have some plans. For instance, I still want to do it. A blog series, small posts, how to roll out a password management solution within an organization. Because, frankly, what I hear talking with friends, other people in the cybersecurity domain from social media, a lot of companies either don't use it or don't use it at an extent that it really benefits them, because you can improve a lot of processes through using password manager. Some other things I wanted to do as well is like doing podcasts. We had a chat obviously before this recording. It's a bit out of my comfort zone, but that's good, and it's something I like to do because I really love to talk about security, and it's an opportunity to talk to you guys here and learn from each other as well. So that's great. Other things I'm trying to do being more active, going to conferences. I've met guys at SecDef conference. Want to do a bit more and maybe some public speaking if I first some work to do. Apply for the CFPs and stuff, but that's something I'm up for as well. So it's a bit more becoming active in the community, and mainly also to meet peers and to really start learning from that way of engaging more.
I think the last point you mentioned there is actually quite relevant, because I think very specifically to security is if you opposed to development, is as a developer, a lot of people next to you, probably if you have a team of 5, 10, 20, are solving the same kind of problems multiple times. But on the security level, it's often you have only one company that you live in for a couple of years, or 10 years, 15 years, and you only have that story. So indeed, having a way to exchange ideas across companies is quite important.
Well, absolutely, because we all face the same problems, right?
Exactly.
I mean, so it would be really, ignorant, I think. I don't know if that's the right way to explain it, but yeah, learn from others, and it's so valuable, and really it's something I should do more, but it's all about
Finding the time, right?
finding the time,
Yeah.
balance, stuff like this. I think it applies for most of us that security is a lot of work. So
Yeah, but I agree. I think, community building, being at conferences, it helps even if you don't speak. Just being there and talking with like-minded people is super helpful to, see that you're not alone. Especially also because within a company, you either are alone or have a small team of security people, and often you don't have, sounding boards, to say, and and then it helps to go somewhere else and see people at other companies that face the same problems indeed, because I totally agree that we all do face the same problems, and there is a great community. I think my experience with meeting people at conferences is that everyone is happy to share and to talk about these things, and that is a great thing to see.
exactly, and what if we say about social media, the few haters, or however you want to call it, I think every single experience from going to conferences, meeting people, has been awesome. It's such a helpful community, if you like. It's like, people are really, really. I think we all know we're in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
We have to help improve whatever our role is. We have to help improve security, and it's a battle. Yeah, of course you're doing that for your own company, but it's a battle that
we do together, right?
Throughout, every company has to do it, and we have to do it. Yeah, in a sense, we have to do it together. Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe shifting gears a bit, you mentioned passwords, password manager. I want to go back a bit to that topic a bit, because I think it's interesting, if you say you want to write a bit about that, rolling out password managers at companies. I think we and most people in security agree, like, password managers, it's the right solution. What I always try to tell people, like, it's also going to make your life easier, right? You don't have to remember all these passwords. You don't have to, like, change just one number or change the name of the service that you're using in your password and things like that, right? You can actually use strong passwords and just have to remember one long, preferably long, strong password. And that user experience benefit of using a password manager, I think that is the most important part that we have to highlight towards everyone, because that is what's going to make people use password manager. It's not going to be security, because people, unless they are hacked at some point, they don't care that much. And yeah, I don't know what your opinion about it is, and do you think it applies to rolling that out within a company? Can you actually convince people that the usability is important, or?
Yes, and everyone makes mistakes. So my mistake was in the beginning, focus too much on security, because in my case, I'm the security guy, and really security is important, right? It is, but people's day-to-day processes and work is important for them. It's a barrier, unless they see that's actually, it's a small hurdle, and help them to get over that hurdle. And then once they see that indeed it improves their usability, the things you mentioned. And I was focusing in the beginning also on the wrong part. Totally right. Usability should be the main factor, and the rest follows. You get security on top of that as a benefit. And people told me that, look, well, you did this session, and I started using it, but a lot of my colleagues are not using it, and I tell them, look, it's a very handy tool. And it was like, how stupid it may sound, it was kind of an eye-opener, like, well, I'm totally approaching this in the wrong way. And that's things like this, and really helping people, because whether it's a password manager or saying the statement, just enable 2FA,
It's a great one.
It's an hurdle for people.
Yeah.
Maybe not go down that rabbit hole. I don't know. We can, but you know what I'm saying. It's not that easy if as we think. We think it's just using a password manager. Why are you doing so difficult No, it's not true. It's difficult for people. They have to see that it really helps them, and then they will adopt. So that's one of the main principles.
I want to go down the rabbit hole a little bit because 2FA is a very interesting topic, I think, because it somehow got to be the security solution that got widely adopted actually in many companies. I'm not sure what happened over the last years that it actually triggered companies to start doing it, but it's great, right? But I think also the main hurdle or the main problem with 2FA is again usability, because everyone that I talk with not in security, and I say like I'm in security, the first thing they say like yeah at our company we do security too. We got Microsoft Authenticator now. That is the thing, and they're like, oh, it's terrible. And that's also about the experience. It's not necessarily about security, because they understand that it is for security, but they're like, yeah, it's a necessary evil. And I think it's a pity, because I think MFA there are rather good solutions, and that's also the topic I want to go to regarding passwords and 2FA. You now have passkeys, right? Is that helping the usability of second factors, do you think? And what is your opinion about, are we going to get rid of passwords at some point, or at least partially?
Well, I always said, and I think you can find it back on X or Twitter, we won't get rid of passwords anytime soon. I think several people agree on that. Why is that? Because if you have your smartphone, the first time you start it, you have to give in your PIN code. Why is that as well? Partially because making the bridge to passkeys as well. I believe that passkeys are a potential solution. I think it's the best we've seen since a long time that may succeed. But still, sites offer passkeys, but they still offer also just that you can log in with your password. The recovery of when you lose a passkey is also still an issue. So over time, yes, it will improve. We will have less passwords, I think. Getting rid, I don't dare to predict that. Also, maybe this little app, this little one-on service still only offers passwords. There are many reasons to think that passwords are here for quite a long time yet. But from a usability point of view, I think passkeys are the way forward. And what we try to do as well is look at, because that's some of the things we learned from 1Password, where they offer passkeys. Obviously, we activated already. But still, from an attacker point of view, yeah, I would attack the password, and because it's still the password authentication is still available. So yeah, it's better, because I don't believe the usual 2FA. Take as an example the Authenticator app. For me, it's a patch on a broken system. Maybe that's yeah. I don't know if that's correct to say, but passwords are broken in the sense that we expect people to use really random passwords, which is such a usability nightmare, because websites, give you a hard time to create a password. So
yeah, but I think you make very good points. I agree. The usability is an interesting topic, because I agree that passkeys, in terms of usability, are interesting, and especially if you have a plain new system, it works pretty seamless. Once you have a password manager that also offers it, it sometimes gets a little convoluted there. But okay, we're getting there, and I believe in terms of usability, it's getting pretty okay. The thing with passwords is that people are used to it. It's a very simple way of authenticating, right? It's just, I have to remember something, I just have to type it in, and in terms of usability, it's not bad, right? The downside is that the usability part of it also trumps kind of the security, because it only is usable if you can actually remember the passwords and are simple and short, and that is not necessarily secure. So yeah, in that sense, if you use passwords in a very usable way, it's not necessarily secure. And I agree that we patch things on top of it. The nice thing I think about passkeys is that it might be a solution to really, replace that first factor, that password. In some cases, again, I agree, we're not going to get rid of passwords anytime soon. And I think one of the points that you mentioned is also a very important one is recovery, right? Because recovery now, either you store your passkeys in your password manager, which you can access using a password. Recovery still is going to require a password. Other types of recovery are usually through email, maybe, which then you still have to be able to access your email, which also is going to then hopefully still require a password, otherwise you can't access it. So again, it's a solution to go to less passwords, which is great, but it's still going fully passwordless is probably not going to happen anytime soon, and I totally agree with that on your point there.
Also love the definition of usability. Also widely varies depending on who you ask. The typical I would say IT savvy person would be, oh, that's very easy to use, and then a black screen open with white letters. Like there's a lot of difference. I think that's also a thing even from internal IT professionals to vendors, etc. I think we need to up our level there. I think you mentioned 1Password. I think they really started having a really good UX experience as one of the first password managers who really stepped up their game in that front. I think they can still go a long way. But I think that's the way to go, to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe a little anecdote. So Twitter, right? You have the most weird discussions, and I was explaining that cloud password managers are not too bad for average Joe and Jane, because right, it's still less of a hurdle. And then some really tech security savvy people are going to tell me that they don't trust syncing with the cloud. They have put up their own very complex system, and they're like, yeah, you have to do it like this. I'm like, we're trying to solve a problem to
for everyone.
push people to using a solution that generates and manages in general and can so that they don't have to remember the passwords, generates really strong ones, and you're like bringing it back, and the point I'm trying to make is, if you want to change things, it must be for the masses. So there are always people we don't reach, but we must try to make it for the masses available and usable. And if we don't do that, I think people in tech in general, but also in security, are sometimes too narrow-minded and don't have enough empathy with the real user, which they also have in their family. I explained my dad to use password manager, and it's like not every now and then I help him a little bit again to. It's not trivial, and people are like the weirdest solutions.
Yeah.
And that's good for them if they want to have a super secure and they believe it's super secure. Perfect. I'm not there to judge them, but as a general solution, that doesn't work.
No, also with the concerns that friends don't let friends implement their own crypto, the whole thing of but then you are maybe the center of trust there. Also some issues, but as you mentioned, people should test for usability. At a previous company I worked at, we had the term grandma testing, which is literally with product taking it to an elderly person. Okay, please try this out, videotape the experience, and then figure out how the thought process goes. And I think it's really it's undervalued. Okay, bring this to the least tech savvy person that you know, and take on their feedback. Probably not all valid, but you'll probably learn something. I think that's undervalued in IT is like this cluster somewhere in the basement, and they never get to see the other parts of the company. So I don't know.
That's really an image we should get rid of.
I
think
agree.
I see it differently, but there are all kinds of people, and there's nothing wrong with people who are really in tech and they are very clever and like you say, don't roll your own crypto, certainly not, but there are certain good solutions. And then, well, I really like what you're saying. Test it with someone who's really not tech savvy and see if it's usable. That's a great way of approaching it, I think.
Thanks. Yeah, It's well, it shouldn't be the least tech-savvy person, but I think yeah, just having somebody else look at it is great. We have an experience with our solution as well, is having other people look at it who weren't previously not in security is just very eye-opening on what we think is understandable for our users.
Yeah, and I think it hooks into a recurring subject on this podcast is the Department of No, or the naysayers, security people that just saying no to everyone. And yeah, I think this fits into it, right? It's it maybe comes from a mindset where you just focus on being as secure as possible, and like, no, if we don't do this, then we are secure, and that's true. If you don't turn on your computer, you're very secure, but you cannot work. And I think this whole usability idea is just a super important part of a super important part of reaching real security, because you're never going to reach it if we don't make our solutions or our processes super usable. It needs to be fit into how people work. Same with developers. If you want to give developers tools to make their code more secure, it needs to be embedded in their process, and they have to, it shouldn't stop them from actually developing code and from actually going forward, delivering features, because that's their job. And if we can really embed our security solutions into people's processes, I think we're going to reach much more security than any very strong security solution that we try to push on people.
Go ahead.
I couldn't agree more, actually, and I think maybe it's about maturity, because when you're new in the role, you're like, oh no, it's not 100% secure. That's snake oil. That's we're not. It's not yes or no. We are secure, but you know what I'm saying. Oh, I'm afraid that we maybe might get, and that with maturity, and with maturity on all levels, on a personal level because of knowledge, maturity in organization because of processes, maturity. Tooling helps with the processes, not the other way around. So I think it grows, and once you understand that usability and the fact what you're saying, enabling people is so much more important than trying to stop all potential risk you could think of. Then you're progressing, because you're not only talking and saying do this, you're listening actually to them. And you talk to them, listen to them. How do you do your job? How can we implement security? It's risk management after all. How can we lower the risk, but make them life as easy as possible while secure enough? That's how I like to look at that.
Yeah, totally agree. I think as well we underestimate how good people are at bypassing things, and yeah, still surprised on all of those things. It's just people will find a way around it in the most weird ways, but around every security control in a way. Even if there's somebody more tech savvy or an IT tech savvy that will teach them how to get beyond it. Like there's so many great examples also over COVID with the mouse jiggler and those kind of things of keeping active on Teams. Like there's so many of these things that you can, yeah, people will find a way around a lot of security things as well. And I think we underestimate that part.
Yeah, it's totally counter-effective. If you really are like, and I know, right, there are some things that you should have 2FA on your accounts. Don't, whether I like 2FA as a it's a necessary extra on top of a password, so you should have that. But then again, you can implement that in many ways. You can implement that as frictionless and user-friendly as possible, or you can implement it in such a way that it hinders people. It's a trivial example maybe, but totally agree that people just are annoyed, and maybe they can't bypass that, but you won't have the buy-in for other things you do if you and it's about creating that awareness, that culture, that they really value that, and experiencing that security doesn't have to be hard or doesn't have to hinder them really helps. I noticed that even if people that first maybe are a bit averse, I don't know if that's the right word, but don't like it too much, and I say, hey, look, I'm now using password manager and I've looked into that. Hey, by the way, I saw that on and then you feel like we're making progress. That's the small signs of that. So yeah, I really don't like if it's pushed or forced upon people. Sometimes, in some cases, you obviously must.
Yeah, we of course our solution, our device security solution XFA, we use, for example, authentication to really enforce some things. But so we kind of have to. It's our selling point to enforce things. That's our power. But we do try to, in every step of the way, because we really try to cater to every use case. Okay, it's verification. It's not privacy. It's respecting your privacy. You have a couple days to install it. Like, do it not frictionless. You have to do something, but try to make it as going with the grain as much as possible.
Yeah, the fact that you embed this in your process of developing the application, that's what matters. I like to think about usable security by design. That's how I
Usable security by design. That's a great point.
Because security by design is obvious. We have to do all these security related activities throughout our development life cycle, but the usability part, not even talking about privacy because that's likely important and related to security, obviously, but the usability part is also often forgotten. And,
I think that's one of our pet peeves, actually. It's we have literally on every application that we access, we have XFA installed. So everybody that wants to try to work for us or has to go through a device verification that the device is secure. But really, like developers, we UX engineer I think 3, 4, 5 times a day they encounter our own product, and I think I would even like to step it up a notch, because if we get annoyed at it, that it's not frictionless enough, that means that our users they won't like it. And I think that's one of our pet peeves. Just use it as much as possible. Try to break it. Try to restart it. Try to make your own account. Everything, and something we see that from experience, other products that we say, okay, people that develop this product are not using it themselves. So yeah, it's interesting how that works.
I think that's a great mindset. I mean, it's with everything in life. This goes far beyond an application. Treat people or make something that you would like to use, and treat others like you want to be treated. And make something good, make life easier on them instead of giving them a hard time. I really, it's one of the values I really also have. When whatever I do, I try to keep that in the back of my mind.
Talking about something else that's a bit experience related, we see a big resurgence of let's call it training tools around phishing, which is also quite an experience. If you're an employee, you had all these trainings. Will we ever be able to convince people to not click a phishing link, or what's your view in general on these kind of tools?
I have to nuance this a bit, I think. Do I believe in phishing simulations? Yeah, depends. I don't believe in closing that gap. And even if you say, like, I don't know what the industry averages are, I would assume something around, maybe I'm way too low, 10% at least, I would think. I don't know. Should look that up. But even if you get it at 1%, if that 1%, those few people, that one person who clicks has enough rights, or even if he doesn't have rights, and you can escalate the rights and navigate your way through to the company network, that's enough. Or installing malware or whatever, doesn't matter how they get in. Then again, I think if it helps you to get reporting rates, it could be useful. But doing phishing simulations on and on just to narrow that, doesn't make a lot of sense, because 1 or 2 or 5 seems more than enough. I think there are other measures in place that are helpful. Don't mean you shouldn't do it. Please do it if you think it is benefit, if you can see the reporting rates, and then at least people, if it's a true phishing mail, 90% reports, which is also valuable, and we will detect it quite quick. So I see a bit of advantage certainly in that. But if the idea is to get rid of people clicking phishing, it's a bit, no, it's not a bit, it's just naive, because all of us here can click a phishing link. Why would we be, yeah, we look at some signs, but why wouldn't we click a phishing link? If all things align, it's a good phishing mail. It's something you expect, and you're like, without even thinking, you're already clicking on that link. And
it's not always only about the clicking itself, right? It's also about the steps that you do after, like putting in credentials.
Yeah, exactly. If you click and then realize, normally you're quite fine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's also why we say, like, chances are, I mean, especially with an up-to-date OS and up-to-date browser, chances are that just clicking the links is not gonna do much harm. It's just you usually get on a website that looks like Microsoft or something like that, where you put in your credentials, and I'm not surprised that it works. That people are tricked into this. And exactly as you said, I wouldn't be surprised if I would go for a phishing mail at some point, and because they're getting good.
They're getting really good. I was reading
smooth.
today about an article about, obviously they're using AI more and more realistic, and yeah, we know AI is getting quite good. So maybe that's something these phishing simulation programs should adapt to as well, and make them more realistic as well. But it's a thin line, really. And yeah, also, like, you know, I'm really, yeah, when it's about password or password managers, that's also a hidden benefit of a password manager. Always tell the people, if the autofill doesn't work, that's keep in mind, think just for a moment, why doesn't it work? And maybe that's not infallible either, but it's yet another sign that it might be something wrong. That's all awareness, and awareness won't ever fix any of your problems fully, but it's necessary in combination with, and totally agree with you as well. It's, yeah, but it's a hard problem. I think we never are going to solve that. And then again, if you have 2FA, if you have strong password 2FA combination, if you don't reuse passwords, you already have, if you have your systems up to date, you already have a very strong basis for
exactly right, and
limiting the impact. I would
say. Exactly, because it comes back to a little bit what we were saying earlier, that some people are like, no, you can't use a cloud-based password manager because, you know, it can be insecure, and, you know, you want to do it locally or whatever, and that is a very important point, because it's also the tendency that you see both with security vendors as well as companies. They're like, ooh, there's this cool new device security EDR, XDR solution that can detect this and that, and then they deploy it on like half of the devices or something like that, and then, you know, and maybe these devices are out of date or something like that. It's like just getting these basic things up to a good level, you know, good passwords, use a password manager, second factor. If we can actually do this in all companies at a certain level, and I know it's a very difficult problem, obviously, to get that done, but that would already like step up our game quite a lot, and a lot of the things like ransomware and non-targeted attacks, these will be much harder. Obviously, for targeted attacks, we have to step up our game even more. But that's a different story.
Yeah, but I even think if you would even step away from the technical solutions, having a good culture where people communicate and are like, hey, is this your email? Or hey, are you asking 5,000 euros to a specific bank account? I think good communication as well. And then, yeah, just why has this specific person this amount of power within a company? Those kind of things as well. Yeah, I always question from those phishing attacks. I'm not saying that they don't happen, of course, but like if you do all those things right, which is all very difficult and across departments, but yeah, how much does actually come true, and how much risk translates in, what's acceptable risk there, I would say. If there's like in a couple of years one email where 500 euros gets paid, it's very unfortunate, of course, but yeah.
Exactly, and the awareness should lead as well to processes. You should never be allowed, if you're in the financial department, based on an email, you should never be allowed to do a transaction. That should always be a call initiated by yourself, such that you control. I'm just not making that up, but just thinking out loud. Like you need just the process in place that prevents you from. Yeah, we're still all human, so it could be that the person doesn't follow the process. So they have to be trained, have to be really aware of the threats that exist, and that it's getting more and more realistic. That voice cloning, that's not something artificial from the movies, that's really happening. Certainly when it goes about high amounts of money, and this wire fraud kind of stuff. So I think that's important. And if you see like, even the video cloning, it's quite amazing already. And some are really easy to spot, but some are like, and I think with voice cloning it's really harder, much harder. There was a research in the Netherlands where they had a famous, I don't know him, but in the Netherlands, a famous person, and they did the research, and they did his real voice and his cloned voice, and only a fraction of people could recognize.
Could he recognize themselves?
That's
But that's
very
actually
interesting.
a difficult question, because recognizing your own voice is maybe also hard.
But you know that you said it, which was
But if
it's
you do the
same
same sentence or something like that, right?
Yeah, and I think it's all about education processes. It's always the mix, I think.
Yeah, but then again, coming from that, I think as well, authentication there will be, or verification, identification will be very interesting there as well. How that will play into, hey, as part of your video feed, we have a verification that this is actually from a non-spoofed camera. I don't know.
I read someone saying, I think it was an ex as well, saying that they agreed on a family password. So when you're not certain that you're talking to the right person, you say the password or something like that, right? And I think that's an interesting. It plays into authentication, right? It's authenticating that you're actually talking to that real person. I think that's a good idea. Maybe that's something that you could deploy within a company as well. But the difficulty is there that it will leak at some point, right?
You have to write it out. Attacker in the network will find it out.
But it's an interesting point of view, right? That you need probably some sort of authentication that goes beyond just verifying the voice or the image, because that might not be enough, right?
Well, what's really interesting that we're going back to the Middle Ages where they had to say the password. It's kind of it's not a bad idea at all, I think. Should think about that.
That's interesting, and but if you go one step more technical again, SPF in Denmark, very ancient, maybe they're modern as now all companies are implementing them, but as well they do this on a domain level already. So you see that these technologies exist, password managers, passkeys. You have a lot of these technologies, but indeed getting them again getting them usable, that everybody uses them at a level that can give us that confidence. I think that's the key to all of this.
You regularly read about social engineering, that they social engineer the help desk, or
social engineering help desk, or just throwing money at it, right? I mean, you will always, in big companies, you will always find someone that is willing to take on some money to actually do something bad, right? And but that's also a very difficult problem to solve, especially at large scale. Very good point. Yeah.
So on that note, I think thank you for making time today, and to everybody who's watching and listening, please follow John Opdenakker on X or on LinkedIn as well, or follow XFA as well if you want to keep up to date on what we are doing. And then we can just thank you for making time for us today. Interesting topics, and I'm sure if there are questions, people will ask them in the comments.
Well, thank you both for having me. I enjoyed it a lot. It was really fun. Always happy to talk about security. So
great. Then maybe we'll have you on next time as well.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.